Hola! I am Ephfive and this is a Scrappy review of Yin Yang from Griffin Games. Yin Yang is a game designed by the prolific Reiner Knizia, who is perhaps best known for Lost Cities, a two-player exercise in not getting what you really need. Yin Yang is mostly a forgotten piece of Knizia's catalog. It doesn't even seem to appear anywhere on Knizia's own website. And yet, it is easily one of my favorite not exactly a filler games. Yin Yang is essentially a trick-taking game like Spades, Hearts, Euchre, Bridge, Oh Hell, Rook, Tichu, or Bottle Imp. Just in case you aren't too familiar with the concept, players contribute cards to a pool of cards called the trick. The player that contributed the highest or most important card wins the trick. Almost all trick-taking games have a twist. Yin Yang has two. The first twist is that Yin Yang doesn't use suits. You know, those symbols most card games use to divide cards up into sets. The suits most of us know are hearts, clubs, diamonds, and spades, but they can be anything really. Tichu, for instance, uses jades, swords, pagodas, and stars. Suits most often relate to which cards can and can't be played on a given trick, and which one wins if multiple suits come out at the same time. Yin Yang, on the other hand, doesn't need any fancy suits. The deck is simply 50 cards numbered 1 through 50, and a player can play any card they have in hand on a given trick. First off, this makes the game super easy to teach, even to those not familiar with trick-taking games, of which there are more than you would guess. But beyond that, this gives players a great deal of strategic flexibility, and the ability to adapt from one hand to the next with little difficulty. And while this may still sound overly simple, what Yin Yang strips out of the card play section of the game, it makes up for in the trick-taking and scoring end of things. That brings us to the second twist. Each trick is technically two, as the player that contributed the highest card gets a number of Yin tokens, and the player that contributed the lowest card gets a number of Yang tokens. The exact number of tokens changes from trick to trick. The goal is not to get the most Yen or Yang tokens, but to take an equal number of each to achieve balance by the end of the 9th trick. This could mean taking 14 of each, or none of either. I love this twist! Every hand you have to consider which tokens you want or don't want, who else is after them or avoiding them, what cards you'll have trouble dealing with later if you don't deal with them now, what cards other players might have, how many tokens everyone already has, and whether your current strategy needs to be completely revamped. Despite that being a whole lot to consider, the simple deck and straightforward scoring make this game easier to digest than you would expect. For example, you don't accumulate both Yins and Yangs, you just keep the remainder of whichever you have more of. That means that this game only consumes as much attention as you feel like giving it. The impact of card play is almost always immediately evident. All in all, I consider this a fun game first and an intense exercise in strategy second, but it is plenty of both. It's a great standby. Playing it doesn't take up a lot of room spatially or chronologically. It's not expensive, and its size makes it one of 9 games I cram into a single small board game box that I take to every event I go to. If I'm disappointed in any aspect of it, it's the presentation. The core deck of cards feature a bland graphic design Yin Yang on a vaguely bluish-gray background. I was never really happy with it, but in researching the game for this review, I found a Polish version published by Egmont, which features pandas performing martial arts on the cards and Yin and Yang tokens that combine into a panda's face. I will never look at my bland tapioca pudding edition the same way ever again. Though, admittedly, I can only imagine what it'd be like to get a game with martial arts pandas on the box, and inside is a simple card game. Fortunately, the game is not language dependent, and I love this game more than enough to spend 40 Polish złota plus some shipping for a second copy and a much fancier suit.